Welcome back everyone, and thanks for watching the channel. Today we're going to remove the frame rails in the Trans Am to make way for this suspension jig, mainly the suspension jig mounting points, because the mounting points for the suspension are in the direct line of the frame rail. So we need to remove the frame rail in order to access these suspension jigging points. So we're going to go ahead and get started by disassembling the rear end of the car. I have put all the parts on the car back here because I originally put a used quarter panel on it, and if you haven't seen that video, you can catch that video in my channel. So we're going to remove all this stuff now that I know that the quarter panel fits well and the tail lamps fit well and everything. We're going to take it all back out so that when we're working with the frame rail, I won't damage any of these pieces, and also it gives me better access to the rear of the car so that I can get work done without having to work around stuff. So we're going to go ahead and start with the bumper. We'll do the tail lamps, do the spoilers, pack them up all nice and neat, store the nuts and bolts properly so that, I don't know, in a year that I'll be able to find these pieces again. Definitely want to store your nuts and bolts properly, as these projects are long term, and when you do a project like this, you have tons of nuts and bolts everywhere, and you don't want to just misplace them, use them somewhere else that you thought they should have been. So you want to definitely, or at least I personally, you guys can do whatever you want, but I personally like to store them in containers, mark my containers of where they went, and then pack them away with all the parts. And then when I go ahead and put the car back together, I just open my little container, I see what went where, put all the nuts and bolts back on in their proper spots, and away we go. So that's what we're doing here. There's a lot of different ways you can store your nuts and bolts. People use a coffee can method. Some people just find plastic containers around the house, whatever it is. I go to Harbor Freight, buy some of these clear plastic containers. You can get them in a variety of sizes. Usually I find something that fits that can go in my toolbox, or that will go in the storage bin that I'm putting everything in. So find something that works for you guys if this is something you want to do. Like I said, man, if you're storing parts for a year, 2 years, depending on how long your project is, you want to be able to find the nuts and bolts. It's frustrating when you come to the end of the project and you're just like, I can't find the nuts and bolts I need for this car. And you got to go buy them or something else. So I always say work smarter, not harder. So, and then, I have different containers for storing my parts as well. Here's a big storage tub. I think I bought this at Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that. Whoever sells Craftsman, it looks like. And then I have already a ton of parts in this storage container. I got my spoilers, my shaker scoop, some other parts in here, all packaged nicely, and so nothing gets damaged. And then I'll put all this stuff in there with my parts container, seal it up, put it away, and open it like it's Christmas in 2 years. Kind of curious, how do you guys store all your stuff? Comment below and let me know what you guys do in order to store your parts and your equipment. Alright, now that we got all the parts stripped off the rear body panel, let's take a look at what our work ahead of us looks like. So the interior of the car, I got a floor in here, I've got a package tray, a rear seat back panel, frame rails are all underneath this. All this has got to go. So we'll start with getting the package tray out first, remove that. Now we will have to rebuild all this after we get it all done. And this is also, we can get to these suspension mount points. Now I've also removed that frame rail cross member between the inner wheelhouses, and I've also removed part of the floor so that I can get to the frame rails. I'm gonna start by removing the rest of the floor pan from the frame rails so I have easier access to get to the mount points of the frame. I'm just going to remove the rest of the floor from the frame with a air hammer and chisel. And the chisel is kind of specially made so that it'll go around a spot weld, and I can just kind of go around it. You can see how it's beveled, and then it'll go around it and just kind of break the spot weld off. On these older cars, the floor sheet metal was a really soft metal, and it peeled right off of the frame rails real easy with an air hammer and chisel. You know, a lot of the new cars nowadays, you have to drill the sheet metal off of the frames because the metal is made of a higher tensile strength now than these older cars were. So this metal just peeled right up off the frame rail. So as you can see now, we've got the floor pan cleaned off the frame rail. This is what the frame rail looks like exposed. You can see the suspension jigging points are right in line with that frame rail, and we can't have that because that's going to be our lateral arm and our toe control arm that we need to get access. To make it easier on me, I cut the floor out here from the shifter back. There is the front subframe cross member mounting points right in front of this, so I don't want to mess with that just yet, but I want to get this floor out of my way so I have more room to work on the frame rails. And I don't need any of this floor because as we move forward with the project, there is no transmission that's going back into this car, and so I want to have this floor cleaned off flat. We'll decide where the batteries go. They may go in this area in the future. Haven't figured that part out yet, but I'm thinking that this area will be a really good spot for the batteries. Keep the weight center and low, so we'll just get rid of this floor out of our way, and it'll make our life easier in the future. Some of you enthusiasts might be looking at this going, oh my god, he's cutting the floor out of his car. It'll never be the same again. Well, I'm not worried about that. Also because there are companies now that if I ever go back, which I will never go back, but if I ever did want to go back, there's companies that sell these floor pans all day long, so I'm not worried about cutting this stuff out. And there again, you know, if I needed to make something, I can always make something later down the road. So this doesn't scare me at all, and this car will never be the same again. You know, this is a resto mod, as I've said before, and we are definitely making some modifications here. Yes, get rid of this floor pan. Bye bye. Alright, with my floor out of the way, my frame rail is exposed, we can get going to the next thing. Now the next thing is actually, I want to brace this car. I'm going to cut the frame rails out of this car, and I don't know how this car is going to react with no rear frame rails in the vehicle. So I'm going to build some bracing here in the door openings to hold the car from sagging, and I'm also going to put a stiffener in between the wheelhouses so that nothing falls in. Now, I don't think any of that will happen, but I just want to make sure that we'll be safe with it all. So I'll go ahead and cut this cross beam between the wheelhouses first. I used my home-built chop saw that I made. I do have a small video about that in my homemade tools video, so if you guys want to check that out, I have showed some plans how I made it if you guys are interested. But we'll get all the metal cut, make sure the bracing fits in the door openings, and then we'll start cleaning things up and getting the stuff welded in so that I feel secure that the car won't move at all after I cut the frame rails out. So like I said, I'm going to put 2 cross members in the opening, one just horizontal and then one diagonal. That way the top of the roof line at the rear will be supported by the bottom of the windshield pillar, and then also I'll put one just horizontally to keep the door gap opening, and that'll go from the windshield pillar to just the middle of the quarter panel there. Now I'm using a drill with a disc grinder on it so that I can clean the stuff. I have regular grinders, but I didn't want to turn on the compressor and pull out my other grinders, so I just went ahead and put a disc on my grinder, or excuse me, put a disc on my drill and cleaned it up. For some of you guys that can't afford tools and still want to work on your project, there's ways to get around it. Put a disc grinder on your drill, start grinding and cleaning things up. Homemade tools sometimes are the best tools anyway. You got to work on a budget with some of this stuff, so keep the cost down. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and protect the windshield and the door glass, and then I'm going to go ahead and clamp these braces in place, and then we'll go ahead and start welding these in. So when you guys are doing any welding or grinding or anything like that, I'm a big proponent for making sure you put your safety gear on. I've burned myself with the welder by not wearing gloves before. I've flashed my eyes by forgetting to put a helmet on or closing my eyes when I tack weld, and it's not the right way to do it. Here I'm just tack welding these braces in place, but I wanted to make sure that I did it right, so put a helmet on, put some gloves on so I can stay in there and get the welding done. So wear your PPEs. It'll make the job go smoother, and it'll also protect yourself from future damages to your body. I've been doing this a long time, and I would say I've learned my lessons. I've got my battle scars to prove it. I'm curious, what's the worst injury you guys have gotten without wearing your PPEs before? Hopefully nothing major, just a scar or two, but let me know in the comments. I'm kind of curious who's really got the worst scar here. Now that I got those welded in place, I want to go ahead and make sure that they're strong and my welds don't break off. So give them a good tug, make sure they're solid, and then we'll go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. But now that we've got that taken care of, we can go ahead and do the fun part. Start cutting these frame rails out. At the top section of the frame rail here, this is just my starting point of the rough cut of the frame rail. When I final trim cut where I'm going to put the new frame rails in place, I'll trim that up a little tighter and cleaner. Right now this is just my rough cuts to get the bulk of the frame rails out of my way so I can actually work on the fine tuning of the frame rail later. And the fine tuning of the frame rail will be when I'm getting closer to putting the new frame rails in place. Don't forget your PPEs, safety glasses. I think I was doing something and I felt something fly close to my face, and I was just like, oh yeah, I gotta put my safety glasses on because don't want to lose an eyeball. I've had plenty of chunks of metal in my eyes throughout the years too, and you know, I usually keep a stack of Q-tips in my toolbox so that I can get pieces of metal shavings out of my eyes. I've been very competent about how to do that. So here's the first part of the frame rail out. At least the left side's gone. Now we're gonna trim out the right side and get this out of our way. And then when I get this out of the way, you can see this exposes the jig mounting points now, or the suspension mounting points, to where they're free and clear and they're not in the way anymore, or the frame rail is not in the way of them. So we'll get this right frame rail out of here as well, and then we'll be ready to do some little closer trimming and then final trimming when we get the frame rails in. You can see my marks on the frame where I plan on doing another cut and then another final trim on this to get the new frame rails in there. Thanks for watching, everyone. Leave me a comment on what you thought, and just want to leave you with this a little bit. I went to a local SCCA race recently because I want to enter my car into these when I'm done building it, and so I went and talked to all the nice folks down there, got some information, and look forward to doing this. Leave me a comment, tell your friends and family about this, and you guys stay safe and healthy out there.